I can't believe what has happened in the last 2 years since many of us met for the first time, but I can't help but to look back and think at the beginning of my career. I spent the first 14 years of my life as a neurologist. This meant at a moment's notice, I had to pause, drop everything, and rush to the emergency room if there was a life-threatening situation relating to someone's brain or mental health. And every time I ran into the emergency room in the middle of the night, trying to shake the sleep out of me, I had that one same recurring thought. Holy Shonda Rhimes, girl, this place ain't nothing like your hit TV show. I want to be a doctor on TV. Unfortunately, ladies, the news is kind of grim. In the real life emergency room, there ain't no hot Dr. Avery Jackson, no McDreamy or McSteamy to seduce you into the supply closet. No, Mallory, there wasn't even old MacDonald on the farm. No. Instead, I found myself standing there in this lone stiletto state, and it was this very crowded room that would start to feel very suffocating with all these people and suffering and the machines and the loud noises. And the only way I knew I was desired was by this signature request that I would hear coming my way. Who the hell is on call for neurology and where is he? Listen. Room 7, 52-year-old male, cardiovascular disease. You've only got 30 minutes to get him inside the stroke window. Go now. Move fast. I was trying to just quiet out all the noise, and this was the first time I started to realize that my, at that time, secret meditation practice was starting to help me in my job. Pause. Breathe, Romie. And as I was started to look at this gentleman, I remember that night clearly thinking, he doesn't have a stroke. Look at the way his lung and his chest wall is moving and his heart rate and his arterial blood clot. This isn't a stroke. This is a clot in his lungs. But you know, sometimes as I reach over to examine him, they, projectile vomit. Yell for the nurses who rush him off to CT of the lung, and I call for the lung doctor, and these two gracious women who I'd never met before come in and are like, girl, oh sister. And they help me to start clean up the vomit long before I hear that signature sound again. Neurology, now, room 4, Border Patrol agent is down. He's not moving his left side, and you've got 7 minutes before we've got the entire squad on our head. Go. I start rushing over, and then all of a sudden it happens. That brain freeze. Ooh, people, you know me well, you know what's about to happen. The batshit crazy starts to take over. And there ain't no chocolate to medicate, only vomit. And it's as if you can just see them in my head, can't you? The entire tribe of judgmental Indian aunties in that moment. Lo. In the middle of the night, the heavens opened up and dropped a noble and handsome man right in the bed in front of you, and you are covered in vomit. Give up now, beta. Shave your head. Go become a monk. Oh, pause, Romie. Breathe. And I start that deep Darth Vader breathing right at this gentleman's bedside and focus. And I hear this baritone voice. Excuse me, doctor. That deep Darth Vader breathing? Are you meditating here in the ER? Oh, shit. I mean, that would be weird, right? I quickly start to panic, thinking, maybe I can tell him I want to be a Jedi Master when I grow up. But no, instead, I did what I was trained to do. I became this cold, detached doctor and quickly said, I need to order an urgent MRI of your brain. I'll need to admit you to the hospital. I'll see you when I have the results, and walk away. So a couple hours later, I go into the hospital, now cleaned up, into his room, and the entire squad is there. And I get greeted by, hey, that's the brain doctor who meditates. And I freeze. And he was like, relax. We meditate too. Really? Like, hey? I'm not wearing vomit anymore. He goes on to tell me this story. We were in Arizona on the border of Mexico, and his particular squad was often called to partner with multiple other government agencies when there was alleged criminal activity going on the border. And he says, so just imagine this, we would partner with other teams and agencies like the DEA, ATF, local sheriff's department, people we had really never met, all under a common goal. We had been tipped off that there's some illegal activity going on in a warehouse or a hotel room, maybe victims of human trafficking involved, drugs, firearms. So you can imagine the scenario, Doc, right? We just, make a plan, we armor up, get our weapons, get our gear, and we go rushing forward into the warehouse and bang on the door. DEA, U.S. Border Patrol, you're under arrest for the possession of firearms and drugs. Come out with your hands up. And they were typically met with what? And fire, loss of evidence, and unfortunately, sometimes loss of life, victims of human trafficking, bullets, and injuries to the drug enforcement agency and U.S. Border Patrol, right? And so they realized that our reporting of negative incidences has gone up drastically in that 18-month period, and what does they need to do? And what did their leader think? They called in a Japanese Zen martial artist, not to teach them martial arts, but to actually teach them the power behind meditation. So they start this meditation, and not only do they have this practice now at work and encouraged to do it at home, but they take these mindfulness-based practices out into the field just for their squad while everybody else was out there, and they said, you know what? We are going to pause, get control of our minds, armor up like we used to do, put on everything, and instead this time we're going to lead everybody else calmly to the warehouse or the hotel and knock on the door like we're room service, exactly what he said. When the door opens, hello, U.S. Border Patrol, DEA, you're under arrest for the illegal possession of firearms and drugs. And what would happen? People would come out with their hands up, walk calmly out. And within 6 months, the incidence of negative reporting went down by over 75%. So what is it that a lone doctor in the emergency room and the Border Patrol agents figured out about meditation in secret before it was on trend and on Fox News? How did that help us all? It was this simple action that when you learn how to control your mind, you learn to control the situation around you. It's as simple in this idea of the power of pause, that we pause, we breathe, and then we respond. So how is this valid to every single person sitting here in the room? Because you're like, Romie, we get it, but I'm not likely to be covered in vomit in the emergency room, and nor am I likely to be in a situation where I'm facing alleged dangerous criminals and fire coming back at me. And here's the situation. I know from visiting many of you at the corporate office and at multiple of your properties that the stresses everybody faces are real. But here's the fascinating thing about the brain. Whether you have a moment to make a critical decision because someone may be taking their last breath on the table right in front of you in the emergency room, or whether a customer is yelling at you at the front desk, or your leader is berating you in front of the rest of the team members, or you were about to close a great sales deal and you realize that you just froze and you made the wrong statement to a potential client and a large deal is going down the drain, the brain doesn't in that moment have the capacity to grade it on a scale of 1 to 10, how likely are you to die? The entire brain freeze takes over regardless of what's happening. It's that typical fight, flight, fright response. You've heard many of you who've heard me speak before have talked about that happens in the brain. What happens in that moment? There's a place in the brain known as the amygdala, what I call our airport traffic control center of the brain. It's that information center that processes everything we're doing, we're seeing, we're hearing, we're listening to, and needing to now relay it into the brain into action, thoughts, analyses, process. When we're in a heightened stress situation, that starts to shut down. It's known in neuropsychological term as the amygdala hijack, or what I call is the brain freeze. Why is this important to all of us in critical leadership roles? Because when our brain freezes, we now have lost the inability to perform critical thinking skills, difficulty reasoning, or emotional distress, right? That idea where once I took that pause to breathe, all of a sudden this awareness came to me and this ability to make a differential diagnosis that I was going down the wrong path. It was the brain or not the lungs. I look at one of the unique stressors that has kind of faced evolution hospitality alone in my dealings and visiting you all at corporate headquarters about the last 12 months or so compared to, I think, the dozens of other corporate clients I work with. And that's this issue of fashion, especially what to wear to the annual conference, right? I know. And so, Robert, next time you need some advice, you call one of the sisters of Evo, right? I've struggled with this a little bit too, but there are 3 men that will never fail you. Jimmy Choo, Stuart Weitzman, and Manolo, right? Yeah. Here you go, sister. Oh, look at that. See, I got that, yeah. And I have a few extra pair in Orlando. I'll send you some in Dallas for next year's conference so you won't have to worry about the belt. We got you covered. We're all family here, right? So as we move forward, and you're thinking like, okay, I'm gonna write it in the app right now to MC and Will, you brought the brain doctor back again to talk about meditation. Like, aren't we over this? I think it's really critical right now to address the myths around meditation and mindfulness. I still hear this often that isn't mindfulness just a trend? When you look in marketing terms or in psychology terms, a trend is a fleeting thought that disappears with the next, thing that replaces it, the next great idea. I understand as leaders, you all are faced with a leadership conference several times a year. Somebody's pushing that new idea down your throat, and then 2 years later, you're no longer hearing about it and it's forced with something else. I'm here to tell you personally, as one of the authorities in mindfulness and meditation, this was a trend about 10 years ago when American women like myself were donning themselves in Lululemon and traveling the world to find other yogis and meditations to work with, right? And then in about 2013, J.W. Thompson, one of my first consulting clients, helped them write their marketing trend reports that come out every year. And that was when they named mindfulness as the trend. And that was the year we saw this uptick in all of the apps and all the other gear and things and technology that go around being mindful, right? We're at this place now, and I'm here with a call to action and a request to everybody in this room that how about we bring meditation and mindfulness to evolution hospitality and make you the leaders in hospitality industry. Yeah, thank you. Awesome, okay, we got a good idea here. One of my favorite chaotic places to be is in London and in the underground. My dad's side of the family, a lot of them live there, and we're still like kids, my brothers and I, when we go there and drag our cousins around to go in the underground. And if any of you have ever been there, there's this area, the platform and the rushing train, and with all the amazing noises and the diversity of people and the amazing food, there's this loud American English accent that comes out, mind the gap. And I think of this often when I'm speaking to corporate clients. Because if we use the same analogy to bust the meditation myths, it is this, is that the train is your quickly evolving business culture and your business goals. The platform back here is the people who are your potential new team members at Evolution Hospitality and Aimbridge, right? So I have a quick question to ask in all sincerity. How many people in this room anticipate continuing a career in hospitality 5 to 7 years from now? Can I see a show of hands? Okay, good news, everyone said yes. Okay, yes. Here's the issue, is right now in elementary schools, high schools, colleges, business schools, and law schools, mindfulness-based stress reduction, and emotional intelligence are no longer even optional courses, but becoming a part of the curriculum. So what is that telling me? One, I know from my side, they can't train experts quick enough who have a deep understanding of brain, psychologists, psychiatrists, neurologists, who are then going to train in integrative medicine and understand mindfulness, and then instead of sitting at home in a one-to-one practice, say, I'll go out and teach. So we've got this crisis in trying to train more experts on our end. But this other idea of my concern of everyone falling into the leadership gap is this, is that within 5 to 7 years, the people that you're recruiting now have this skill set that leaders may be lacking unless we fill that leadership gap. And that is this ability to connect with interpersonal relationships, to manage emotional intelligence. And if we don't have that, we all can fall into the leadership gap. So what are some signs that you've fallen into the leadership gap other than you are rolling your eyes going, okay, I'm going to be polite and sit there and listen to Dr. Romie, right? What are some other ideas? You think meditation is something only for the yoga studios, or it's something that's a little woo-woo spiritual out there. It has no place in corporate culture, right? You may be in the leadership gap. What about if you went to your primary care doctor and they gave you this long list of new diagnoses? Gosh, you've gained 10 pounds in the next year, your heartburn, your blood pressure's up, your migraines, you're depressed, maybe you're anxious. They gave you all these prescriptions and they say, are you stressed? And you're like, no, I'm just really busy executive, right? And you walk out of the office. That is the leadership gap. Now, please know I'm not here to judge any single one of you. I bring that, one, from my expertise in the area, but two, I bring that to you humbly, because early in my career as a lone female neurologist in our division running research and seeing patients, I fell in that leadership gap. Anybody here knows that the quicker you rise, the farther you have to fall down in the gap. I wasn't listening and fell deep down inside from that stress and the illnesses, and it took a team of cardiothoracic surgeons, world-renowned. I give thanks to them every day to help save my life, and a handful of mindfulness teachers to get my head back on right. And so I'm here not from a place of judgment, but one to say, would you give me a chance? I'm reaching out my hand, and let's bridge that leadership gap. Because the key that all these companies I've worked with that have well-implemented mindfulness and meditation programs in, such as Aetna, Intel, that are working and training their current employees and their leadership, all have this idea. How do we take control of our minds? It's this simple thing. We must slow down in order to speed up. In that pause, when we slow down, we're able to refocus on what's critical and move ourselves and organizations forward.